Welcome, everyone. This is Joe Dager, the host of the Business 901 podcast. With me today is Johanna Rothman. Johanna is an author of one of my favorite project management books. It is called Manage It, which has spurred me on to buy several of her other books, with her latest one being Agile and Lean Program Management. There it is. Okay.
Yeah, here.
Okay. She is an author of over a dozen books and is known around the Agile world as the Pragmatic Manager, which I guess is as good a place as anywhere to start. Okay, Johanna, what does that mean? And introduce yourself.
Well, thank you so much, Joe. And I've been kind of around. As you can tell, I have gray hair. So I am an old programmer, is what I like to say, turned into a management geek. And the reason I call myself the Pragmatic Manager is because I have an email newsletter called The Pragmatic Manager. So this way everybody knows it's mine. And I find that everybody has a slightly different context. So very rarely can you say, this applies to everybody. Instead, you have to say, what are the principles? What's your context? How do I take the principles and apply them to my context? That's the pragmatic part.
First inclination when looking at your new book, Agile and Lean Program Management, is there's a lot of stuff in there. Okay? And I thought all this lean and agile stuff was kind of supposed to be a little easy, a little, not winging it, but God, there's a lot of information in that.
Well, that's because of the subtitle, which is Scaling Collaboration Across the Organization. And that's the hard part, right? People talk about scaling frameworks, which might be fine for you. They have not been fine for me or for my clients, so I didn't write about them. But I find that when you have to scale the collaboration across the organization, now you have people, and the people have challenges. So one of the challenges I see a lot, especially in organizations relatively new to Agile, is that they have functional teams. So they have UI developers, and they have back-end developers, and they have middleware developers, and testers are considered a service. How do you make a cross-functional team that can deliver a slice through the architecture like that? That's really hard. So it's not about, and you might be able to manage it in a project because you say, okay, for the next 6 months, we're going to grab Tony from here and Daisy from there and Stacy from here and Terry from there, and we're going to call them a team. And by the end of the 6 months, they're going to deliver this project, and then they're going to disperse back to their organizations. But in a program, you can almost never do that because often programs take longer. And secondly, you don't want the people to disperse back. You want to keep these cross-functional teams together because that's how you get rid of the interdependencies. So there's a lot about scaling collaboration that is really kind of hard. So yeah, that's why I don't think the book is that big, but I guess it's big enough. It's 215 pages, including the bibliography. So it's not bad.
Okay.
But it's not skinny like some of my other books.
Okay, well, that's one of the things you just mentioned that you bring up such a good point, is we bring all these people together. They create all these dependencies among each other, right? Okay? And all this tribal knowledge is created, during this time, and then we take them away from each other, right?
Right. What were we thinking?
Yeah, something's wrong with that picture, isn't there?
Yeah, because now you should not get married to your team forever and ever, amen. Right? I'm not saying that. But I am saying that teams who stick together longer actually deliver better. Because there's the forming, storming, norming, and performing, right? The Tuckman model. And it takes a while for teams to really form. And then they go through storming, where I'm actually on a team now that is storming like crazy. Now, we have not, parts of us are getting to performing, parts of us are not. So I think it's really important to say, How do you get to a high-performing team? I would be happy if most of the teams were just averagely performing, as opposed to, you messed with my stuff and now I'm angry at you, right? Because we see a lot of that in teams when people come on and off. And the multitasking in teams is just stupid, right? Because if you and I have an agreement that I'm going to deliver something to you, which is what often happens in Agile teams, and my manager comes to me and says, oh, Johanna, I really want you to do this thing over here. And I say, but it's going to make my deliverable to Joe late. He says, I don't care. This is more important. How do you feel? Right? You feel as if I let you down. That does not make our teamwork very good at all.
You spend a fair amount of time on servant leadership. You bring that up, and I think that's very interesting. And how does servant leadership work in a team environment and maybe a program management? I mean, can you explain that chapter a little bit to me?
So both the program manager, the program product owner, if you have an architect for the program, all of those people are servant leaders. And they're about helping the teams deliver better. It's not about telling teams what to do. It's, well, in the sense of the program product owner, yes, the program product owner sets out the overall roadmap. But then the program product owner has to work with all the product owners and say, what can you guys deliver when? So instead of handing down directives and controlling measures from above, instead, those people have to support the people who work with them. So when I was a manager, I always used to say, people don't work for me, they work with me. That's a very important distinction, because when you make that distinction, all of a sudden you can say, people are really in charge of their own work, because you know what? They're adults. I can ask them to do something. I can tell them about the results I want them to deliver. I can offer coaching if they want it from me, but they might not want it from me. So it's really important to say, what is it that I can really get from people? And so I am all about results. I want to look for the results. In many ways, I don't care about the process. I care about not delivering bad stuff, right? But that's all about how I frame the results. So if I say to people, how you do it is up to you. And if I'm in a regulatory environment, I might have to say, you guys, you have to live within this stuff because otherwise we're going to get audited, right? People understand that. But if I'm not in a regulatory environment, then I can say, I really don't care how you do it, as long as you deliver this stuff. And you have not removed your capability for doing more stuff to this later, right? So I'm not saying do bad coding or bad testing and increase your technical debt or ickiness. I guess ickiness is not the right word, but it's a good enough word for now. I'm not saying that. I'm saying if I want you to deliver something that makes sense, that works, that allows you to go back in and refactor later. I am asking for your best professional work.
That philosophy is good. I'm a lean guy. A lot of the listeners understand servant leadership. You're in a hole and you need something done in a short time. Don't we revert back to that command and control just to get it done? I know the consultant answer, but what's the real answer? What do we really need to do?
So here's the key. What is it that's so urgent about this? Then did that come down from above? I mean, is this the ickiness rolling downhill? Because if it is, you might have to say, I know I asked you to work on your own. I know I asked you for these results, and my manager is putting pressure on me for this, right? For this thing. So if my manager is putting pressure on me, I have several choices. I can put pressure on the people who work with me and try and command and control them. I can ask them to deliver this because of a need. I can offer them other options. Let me ask you the last time you tried to command and control any adult. Were you successful?
I can't even do it with my children. Okay.
Right. Right. So here's the case. I mean, we all want to work for our autonomy, our purpose, and our mastery, right? That's why. I mean, you have to pay people enough, but once you pay them enough, and this is in Dan Pink's book Drive, once you pay them enough, the money is off the table. They work for autonomy, purpose, and mastery. So how can you instill more of that and less of the command and control? You don't have to tell people precisely what to do. And if you have, this is the thing, if you have a rhythm of releasing, this is why iteration-based Agile is so helpful. If you have a rhythm of releasing often, and in the book I say at least once every 2 weeks internally, I should say at least once a month internally, at least once a quarter externally, right? So that you're always releasing, you can always show where you are across the program, then you have a really good shot of when people say to you, I don't want that thing in the roadmap here. I want this thing to move up forward, and I want this thing to move back. Now you can say to the teams, okay, because we are releasing on a regular basis, the product owner value team and the product owners realize that we need something a little bit different now. So I'm not telling you to do both, right, this initial thing and this other thing. I'm saying let's switch them in the roadmap and see where we get for all of our deliverables. And this is why Agile works, right? Because if you release all the time, and I'm a big fan of, if I could release every day, I would release every day. So I mean, I love continuous delivery, but not everybody can do it, especially across a large program. But the more you practice releasing, the more opportunities you have to change. So it's not like you get 90% of the way through this feature set and somebody says, oh, we don't need any of that. Please change to this. No, you were able to release those increments of value all along. And that's what allows the program manager, the program product owner, the program architect to be all servant leaders, because it's all about the business value.
You address it in your book about continuous planning. Okay, What? Expand on that a little for me, would you please?
Sure. So there are a number of frameworks that say plan once a quarter. Do you plan only once a quarter in your business? I don't. No, you plan a lot more often, and you plan more often based on what happens. When teams deliver on a regular basis, then you can use rolling wave, deliverable-based planning to plan continuously. So if you remember back in Manage It, I talked about yellow sticky planning, and I said, I always have a month of planning, and we have these deliverables this week, these deliverables the next week, and the third week we have these deliverables, and the fourth week I might have a pretty good idea about deliverables, but they might change, and as we finish that first week, we add on to the end. So I always have a picture of 4 weeks. That's a rolling wave. This is the same thing. It's all rolling wave, deliverable-based planning. So if you can do continuous planning at the product owner value team level, right, the product owner for the entire program, and then see what the teams deliver on a regular basis, at least every week or two, and if necessary, only every month, then you never have to do big planning. I mean, I don't know about you. I've worked on programs of 150 to 250 people. I could never have gotten all those people in a meeting. First of all, my company would never have paid for the hotel room. And secondly, half of them were introverted engineers. If I had asked them to come to any meeting, they would have said, no. Right? And you're not going to make me. So why? Okay, so they might have been a little bit more mature. But they would have said, no, I'm not coming. So why would I insist on some kind of planning that requires everybody in a room? Oh my goodness, that's so expensive. When instead you do a little bit of planning all the time. Just a little bit all the time. You always have a rolling wave. You always know your deliverables. It works out really well.
When does it become winging it? Winging it, okay.
That's a good question.
What's the difference?
So winging it is when you say to the team, here's what I want you to do today, right? That's winging it. No, I want the product owner at the team level to either use a Kanban or a Scrum board, well, an iteration board, and I want them to say, if it's an iteration board, I want the team to say, here's what we think we can do inside an iteration. And if it's a Kanban board, I want the product owner to be able to say, this is the most important thing, and when you're done with that, right now, I think that this is the next most important thing. And the product owner has to be available, has to be available when the team is ready for the next most important thing. Because in Kanban, you might not have the story, the backlog, refinement, whatever it is that they're calling it now, right? You're not going to talk about the backlog every week and refine it and refine the stories. You might do things just in time. So you really have to say, what's the most important thing that the team can do now? And especially in flow, if the team works on things and is swarming or mobbing so that they have single piece flow, right? Only one story moves through the entire team until it's done, then it's really incumbent upon the product owner to be there for the next story so that the product owner can say, here's what I want you to do now. But if you have a roadmap, and the book is full of roadmaps, that gives the team a look ahead so that they're not saying, what is it you want me to do next and why don't I have any vision? Because I don't want the team to be winging it either. I want the team to say, oh, I get it. We're going to work on these things and these things and these things. And then we're going to start working over here. And we're going to build out this product in this way. So the roadmap gives the team a look ahead.
You know, you talk about scaling collaboration in the title there. Oh, can you bring in autonomy, collaboration, exploration? And can you tie those together?
So sure. The autonomy is every team has to be able to work in its own way, right? This notion of everyone has to do Scrum or everyone has to use Kanban or everyone has to use XP and everyone has to use DSDM. It doesn't matter what the teams use, right? The teams have to be able to work the way they want to work. Once you have teams who are sitting together, hopefully actually physically co-located, but even if they're virtually together, they have a rhythm for their work. They develop a rhythm. They understand how to do whatever it is that they want to do. So I really want teams to be able to decide for themselves how to use Agile and Lean for their best benefit. But that still means you have to be able to collaborate across the organization. And especially you need communities of practice. So if the testers are all into all the teams, if the architects are all into all the teams, if the UI and the front-end developers are all into all the teams, how do they ever learn from one another? How do they take back what they learned in their project to the greater good? And that's where you need collaboration. So part of it is a small world network that you develop. So instead of having a hierarchy where problems have to go up the hierarchy and then back down, get solved, and then come back up and come back down, this way the people have the ability to ask questions of anyone at any time. I saw this for the first time back in, I'm going to show my age now, back in the late 80s, where we had about 150, maybe it was 200 people working on a program. And at the time I was a software program manager. So we had a small team of testers who were integrated into their product teams. And one of the testers had a question about how to do performance testing on something. It turns out that a hardware guy answered him. Right. I did not expect a hardware guy to answer him. This was on the software part of this of the product. But the hardware guy said, I had this question just last week, and here's what I did to figure out how to know that my hardware would work in time for the software to be able to work. And maybe that would help you. So when you're not confining people to a hierarchy, they are free to collaborate across the organization.
So what we're saying kind of is I always termed it that you needed overlapping responsibilities, overlapping teams maybe, so that collaboration is shared just as part of everyday work. Would that be a fair way to talk about it?
I don't think of it as overlapping responsibility, but maybe
Okay.
overlapping knowledge. Yeah, that the knowledge is not confined to one silo. If you look at the book and the picture of the small world networks, so for example, you and I are connected on LinkedIn, and we have a bunch of other people in common. So our networks, especially in the lean area, are very solid, right? Because you're a lean kind of a guy. And at least I hope that's okay if I call you that. And you probably don't have access to all the agile people I have in my network. So if you wanted to contact them, you might ask me for an introduction, right? That's using our small world network. So when you ask people across your network for information, now all of a sudden you have your ability to get information is multiplied by many, many times. So that's the value of the small world network. Not that I have to know your job or I have the same responsibilities, but if you have a question, I can answer it. And that is so valuable. That allows us to build up our little networks inside the organization in all kinds of places. So when I was a program manager and a project manager, I built up my connections with accounting because I did not want them to do nasty things to my project or program in the middle. And I learned about capitalization so that when they said, when the lawyer or the CFO said, can we capitalize now? I would say, in fact, I learned how to say, you can start capitalizing now because we have delivered value, right? So understanding what they want was really helpful for me.
I cut you off. I didn't leave you finish exploration, I don't think.
Oh, so one of the things that's really interesting about programs specifically is that it's so hard to get the architecture right. Right? Let me roll my eyes some more. So, and that's because at the very beginning of the project, you know the least about how it's going to work. Now, you might say it's going to be a star configuration or a master slave or a distributed system, right? You can get some of the big pieces of the architecture right, but you're not going to be able to really get design by contract. You're not going to be able to get all of the architecture and design right at the beginning. So what can you do about this? You can say to people, let's figure out how to explore the architecture as we continue. So what do we need to know? We need to know what the roadmap is, so we see the deliverables and when we think we want them. We might have to have a cross-functional team to do the exploration along with the architect. I really like that one. But maybe you have an architecture team that does exploration by itself, and it does not define the architecture. It says, here is a prototype of what the architecture could be. Now, let's see what happens when we implement several features. Does that architecture still work? So you use things as a hypothesis, whatever it is, and say, here's how it might work. And what do we have to measure? What do we have to explore? How do we do the wayfinding and all that other great architectural stuff so we actually have good product by the time that we're done?
A little bit about your consulting firm, Rothman Consulting. What do you do besides just write? Okay, because you write a lot, all right?
I do write a lot. In fact, because I've been practicing my writing, I write pretty fast now. So I provide, what I says on my bio is I provide frank advice for your tough problems. Part of it is you might think that you have a particular problem in some area, and I can see based on your description and based on the data that you're gathering and based on your circumstances that it might touch this part and this part and this part. So I help people realize what their problems are. I help them figure out how to solve them. So I do training with experiential workshops. I coach and consult. Is there something else I do? I'm sure that there is. I do offer assessments. I do all kinds of things that help you be able to see your particular problems and then solve them in a pragmatic and practical way.
Well, the book is, of course, on Amazon, but is there a book site or other ways in different formats available and a place to learn about it?
Absolutely. So there's a page on my website. If you go to my books page, all of my books are there, and Agile and Lean Program Management is one of those books there. I'm selling it everywhere fine books are sold. So aside from Amazon, where it's in print and audio and ebook, I believe that Barnes & Noble also has the print and the ebook. Kobo has the ebook. Let's see. Of course, it's on LeanPub. I'm sure that I have it on more places than I just don't remember because I don't have it up on my screen.
And what is your website?
jrothman.com. JROTHMAN.com.
And is that the best place for someone to contact you?
Absolutely.
Okay, you do read the contact thing when someone sends it.
Oh, I do. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Well, I want to thank you very much, Johanna. It's been a delight. I like I said, I've been a long-time fan of yours. I think Manage It is got to be close to 10 years old now, doesn't it?
Yes, I believe it was published in 2007.
Okay.
So yes, almost 10 years.
Yeah, which is amazing from where Agile has come from them, but it still is relevant today. And in fact, I just looked at it before the podcast, and I thought, oh yeah, you know.
Yep.
So great. What is there anything you'd like to add or mention anyone about your books or your work or anything?
So I'm actually working on an Agile project management book. Well, it's going to be Agile and Lean. I know, what a surprise. And that's kind of based on Manage It. So Manage It was for any project. And this other book, which is not named at this point, is about how you use Agile and Lean on your projects for your context. I'm also offering writing workshops because I find that other people want to learn how to write the way, not so that they sound like me, but with my prolificness. So I'm offering writing workshops, and I'm offering a product owner workshop because in Agile, the product owner job is so difficult. And I think that there is just not enough out there. So when I talk about roadmaps, product owners say, I have to do a roadmap. I don't have to just do a backlog. So I'm offering a 6-week online workshop about how you really do the product owner job.
Well, I think that's great information. I'm glad I asked that question, okay?
I am too. Thank you.
This podcast will be available on Business 901 iTunes Store and the Business 901 website. So I would like to thank Johanna and also all the listeners for listening. So thanks, everyone.